All right, ooh, that was very loud, sorry. The mics got turned up from last month. I hear feedback was given, so there we go. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Monday, March 18th regular board meeting for Collingswood School District. Appropriate notice has been given. Roll call, please.
Mr. Chu?
Here.
Mr. Craig?
Here.
Mrs. Maya? Mrs. Mikulski?
Here.
Mrs. Savarino?
Here.
Mrs. Seltzer?
Here.
Mrs. Sheridan Celia?
Here.
Mrs. Sherman?
Here.
Mr. Tavy?
Here.
Mr. Dilkus?
Here.
Mrs. Caden?
Here. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. We did have a brief executive session, and we are now moving on to Section 3, presentations. We have Chief Carey here to give us an update on how the SLO position has been working for this year so far.
All right. So I just wanted to give a quick update on the SLO program. I know there was a lot of concern and questions going into the program, and although I do have some data, I will start by saying this isn't really a good interpretation of what the program is or what it's capable of. If you're going off of strictly numbers, I can tell you that as compared to last year, in the first 6 months of the school year, the school saw 117 calls for service, whereas this year there's been a reduction to 79 calls for service. Most of those were at the secondary level, so the high school itself went from 67 to 36 calls for service, and the middle school went from 31 to 15. So although the numbers are rather small, the percentages, if you were to break it down that way, they're rather significant. A lot of that could be attributed to a number of things. So I think we had the stance from the beginning that the SLO program was not going to be that one piece that was going to change everything. It was going to be a piece of the puzzle that needed to happen to change some of what was going on. So a new high school principal, I'm sure, has helped with that as well. So that and better coordination with the SLO, I think, has made an impact. We started out the program being very, very cautious, and that was by design. So we set pretty tight restrictions on what the officer was able to do and not able to do. As the program evolved over the 6 months, I think we have some lessons learned as a result of that. We found where the SLO could be more beneficial. I don't think we found a way that there's been a negative to the program other than the fact that we maybe overly restricted the position, even more restrictive than the parameters that we set out. But again, that was a decision Dr. McDowell and I made, being overly cautious about what the program was going to be, how we were going to mold it, and how it was going to take form and shape into what a successful program would be. I will say that, again, it's hard to quantify the number of calls that were not made as a result of the SLO getting a phone call. But I can say that, and I'll provide a few brief examples, last week being one of them. So for those unaware, the SLO has resigned. He is no longer with the district. He has moved on to another position with another municipality. So the result there is we are going back to the way it used to be, where we have the patrol officers working during the day. They're the ones that are going to be getting the calls for service. We do have a juvenile detective who is there for more complex or complicated matters, but they are separate from the officer responding to take the initial call for service. So last week, for instance, there was a call that was required per the MOA. Officers did come out to the school, and the end result there was actually, in my opinion, a lot different than it would have been if the SLO was involved. So if the SLO was still in district, I think that the matter could have been resolved with a phone call to that person. That person having more knowledge about how the school operates, the MOU, and some of the dynamics with the administrators and the students and families that were involved. So because that was not the case, an inexperienced officer responded, needed someone to respond with them to help, and disrupted the day where it did not necessarily need any disruption to the day. What that also did was kind of pause the school's ability to take action until law enforcement was notified, conducted their investigation, and completed the investigation. Whereas if the SLO had been there, it could have been a phone conversation or a very brief, I guess, consultation with school administrators that would have moved that process along. Another way in which the SLO was beneficial when they were here is we had an incident where, again, per the MOA, law enforcement had to be notified. The school received information. They notified the SLO, and from that, that investigation branched out to actually 2 different municipalities. So in addition to Collingswood, it had gone out to 2 different municipalities just given where people involved lived. Typically, what that would mean is Collingswood would call municipality A, let them know what information we had, ask them to then investigate that matter and get back to us. What happened in this instance is that Officer Grigg, the SLO, went to municipality A, spoke with the investigators there, met with the family there, determined that it didn't actually occur in municipality A, it happened in municipality B. So again, going back to what normally would have happened is Collingswood would have called municipality A. They would have called us back and said, yeah, it's not us. You've got to call municipality B. We would have called municipality B. I'm thinking they would not be all that happy that we're calling them, giving them a bunch of information and letting them know they have an investigation to do. And that would have caused a lot of delay in regards to the criminal or law enforcement investigation, which slows down what the school is able to do as well. But because we had the SLO, again, he went to municipality A, found out, no, it didn't happen here, went to municipality B, met with investigators and supervisors there, and was able to come to a resolution of that by the end of the school day, if not shortly thereafter. So by 4 o'clock, it was resolved, and we had information. We were able to relay that back to the school, and by the next day at school, they were able to do what they needed to do on their end because the law enforcement or criminal investigation was complete at that time. So I don't want to say that's a success story, but that is an example, a real-life example of some of the things we had spoken about that could be beneficial about the program. So that is a real-life example of how that came to fruition. Another one is we had a missing student, and this isn't really a success story as much as a collaboration story, or what could be a collaboration story. We had a missing student. There's attendance meetings that happen at the school. And during that attendance meeting, there were a lot of questions, a lot of concern about the student and the student's family. So on law enforcement's end, we had done a lot as far as the investigation to determine where this student might be, what kind of danger they were in. And it was an ongoing and active investigation that we were aware of a lot more information, obviously, than the school would have been. So what came of that was there was an attendance meeting, and after that attendance meeting, the school reached out to me and asked on the status of this juvenile. Now what came of that was the understanding, and I guess the light bulb went off that said, okay, this is one instance where we can loosen the restrictions on the program to allow better coordination between the school and law enforcement so that we can move toward finality for this juvenile and their family. In speaking with Dr. McDowell, we did discuss that there are some restrictions, obviously, that still need to be in place, and law enforcement has no place in being in every single attendance meeting. But attendance is just one example of those times that the school can collaborate with law enforcement to get to the same end. And that end is helping and navigating people through systems that are very, very difficult to navigate through. So they are just 2 brief examples in 6 months that I can give you that are quantifiable, or at least something real and tangible that you can look at to say, okay, there is a benefit to the program, one that we made speculation about that could be the case and ended up being the case. So as of now, like I said, 6 months in, we've learned a lot of lessons. Those lessons really are, in my opinion, what the program could be. So overly restrictive to begin with. I think that we found that the program can expand to go to the boundaries of what we've set up the program to be without being overly intrusive, disruptive, or violating any privacy concerns that there might be. We were, again, very, very cautious in the rollout of the program because of the concerns of the community And I think that I can speak at least for the law enforcement perspective on that. I don't think we came anywhere near meeting what people thought this program might turn into be or would be. What it really was is a program for coordination and collaboration with the school district, which is, again, what we set out to do. And I think we've laid a pretty good base or set up a pretty good base of where to start moving forward. So with that said, there was a lot of caution in the beginning, unknown what this program might be, but after 6 months, I believe, and with Dr. McDowell's help, I think we've found out really how to move forward with this program. As examples, Dr. McDowell and I would meet with the SLO on a weekly basis. That is not really the way the program was intended to be. The program is intended to be that the SLO would meet with building administrators and build a rapport with building administrators. Maybe have an opportunity to discuss being in those attendance meetings or other information that could be shared while still holding privacy. But being as cautious as we were with the rollout, we wanted to have a lot of control on that to make sure we didn't step outside those parameters. However, 6 months in, I think we have a pretty good understanding, or at least Dr. McDowell and I have a pretty good understanding of what that program is, what the potential of that program is as well. So I don't know if there's any questions from the public or if that's allowed during this session. No, not allowed. Sounds good. So I don't know if there's anything more that I could share. I can say also, since I said the SLO did resign, I am in discussions with Dr. McDowell now. We believe that building that good foundation, it would not make any sense for us to rush a process to get someone into that role to fulfill the rest of the obligation for this year. It would make a lot more sense for us to sit back, vet out the right person, take some of the lessons learned from Officer Grigg, and maybe find someone that has some more life experience, might have a family, and has some more dealings with juveniles at home. Not necessarily so that they can deal with juveniles in the school, but to have a different level of empathy and compassion. Not that it's something we don't have. One of the core tenets of the police department actually is compassion. So it's not something that we don't have, but it is something that can be higher with some than others. And I think it's important to find those characteristics in the person we're looking for. Training is only offered so many times a year. Although you can get exemptions and we could put someone in the position without the training, again, I don't think that would be beneficial, and it would be doing an injustice to the work we've done for the 6 months and beyond, really, the 6 months trying to set up parameters for this program. So for the time being, I think it makes the most sense to kind of pause, sit back, take the lessons learned, start vetting someone within the agency who might be capable of doing this job, and go through the interview processes with the board again to determine who a suitable replacement for Officer Grigg is. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Carey. Moving on to Section 4, we are not going to have a Committee of the Whole section tonight. We know we have another meeting scheduled for next week that would most likely be the topic of discussion, and feel that it probably makes more sense to wait on that. So I'd like to turn your attention to Section 5, Future Dates and Miscellaneous Information, and really drill down on a couple of important ones that the board would like you to be aware of and to mark your calendars for. The first is next Tuesday, March 26th. There will be a special board meeting here in this same location at 6:30, where we will have our first official presentation on what our plans are for the bond referendum. So please tell your friends. An email will be going out this evening with those dates and information on how to attend. It will also be recorded and put up on our website afterwards. Then there are 2 information sessions scheduled for the 2 weeks after spring break. That's Tuesday, April 9th and Tuesday, April 16th. Both are at the Collingswood Community Center at 6:30, and they're intentionally made to be more informal, so that not quite as intimate as our roundtable discussions at the library. We did it at the community center so that we would have more space, but that is the opportunity for, once everyone has had the chance to digest the presentation, to ask questions, bring concerns, give us suggestions, feedback, things like that. So we wanted to make sure that there was plenty of an opportunity for folks to sit with the proposal for a bit of time and then come back and give us some feedback on those dates. And then finally, the next official BOE meeting will be Monday, April 29th, and that meeting will have the official presentation on our budget. We are voting on our budget tonight, but that is a preliminary budget, which is why there is not a presentation on it, because we don't have all of the information needed to give you the specifics that we feel that the community deserves. So we're waiting until the April meeting for that. So there's lots of other wonderful things on this future dates list that I encourage all of you to attend, but wanted to draw your attention to the specific ones having to do with the referendum and our next board meeting. Moving on to section 6, routine business. Sorry, I took a page with me. Motion to approve the minutes of the regular board meeting on February 26th and the March 9th board retreat.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Roll call or all in favor? All in favor? We have now reached our first opportunity for public comment. The purpose for this public comment section is to discuss items listed on the agenda. Additional, more general comments may be made later in the meeting. The public is reminded that attempts to resolve all concerns and complaints should first go through appropriate staff members and administrators. The intent of public comment is to give the community the opportunity to provide feedback to the board. We will be actively listening and taking notes so that we can take all that is being said into consideration. If appropriate, clarifying comments may be made at the end of the public comment section. For more detailed responses to concerns, communication may go out later in the week by the appropriate staff members or administrators, or be discussed by the board during future committee meetings. Members of the public are welcome to speak and expected to do so with the utmost sensitivity to everyone in attendance. In fairness to all who wish to speak, there's a strict 3-minute time limit per person during public comment. Ms. Coleman will have her trusty phone timer and we'll let you know when you're getting close to the end of 3 minutes. Please come to the microphone and remember to state your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name is Constance Stitzel. I live on King Avenue here in town. I'm referring to M1523, and I was a little confused. It says it will be a first reading tonight. Read that for the first time. Maybe some of my questions will be answered then. So I guess I'll make them now, and maybe you're going to say, well, you're going to find out anyway, but I don't know that at this point. This is an interesting referendum because it refers to our protected categories of the NJAC. But this is the first time I've seen a specific reference to migrants as it pertains to achieving equity. And I think this begs definition because migrants used to mean people who would be day laborers and move from place to place. Migrants is now becoming to mean people who are living here permanently from another place. So I think this begs definition because it can also mean those who are not legal citizens. Now I know we open our schools up to people who are not citizens. At the same time, I believe we want to encourage them to be citizens. I might add I raised my children in Haddon Heights and then I lived in Manhattan for 15 years and really enjoyed the diversity here, and that's why when I came back here I moved to Collingswood. So I'm definitely on your team here. I had friends there who became legal citizens with the past 2 years. One was Chinese, one was German. In the past 4 years they became citizens. One was Hungarian, another Finnish, another Iranian, and another Armenian. They're coming through the legal process. So I guess I'm bringing this up because I feel we are going out of our way to include migrants here in Collingswood, and I believe that's going to become more of an issue moving forward. And if it's not part of the NJAC protected categories list, I'm wondering why we are stepping outside of that. And maybe I'm not understanding what you mean by migrants. So that's why I wanted to say I think it begs definition. So I would just like to hear more about this as to where this will go. Thank you.
Hi, Wayne Rossi, 114 East Palmer Ave. Yeah, so I think that having heard that, to my surprise, the school liaison officer has resigned, I honestly feel that if we can go the rest of the year without one, then I don't see a burning need to replace that position, especially given the state of our budget and the fact that the state has been quite unkind to us in the budgeting process. I think that frankly the money can go to better places, and the things that Chief Carey mentioned that were positive could be done by someone, could have been achieved by someone who is not a law enforcement official. So I think that I feel strongly about that. I do appreciate that there are a number of equity initiatives on the agenda, and I would also like to hear more during that section about like the means and the goals of it. And lastly, I just want to say that I think that it is very positive that the board move ahead with the continuation of the contracts for Dr. McDowell, for Beth Ann, and with hiring the new curriculum superintendent for curriculum. So I think that that's all very positive on this agenda. Thank you.
Leah Foreman, 501 South Vineyard Boulevard. Like Wayne, I'm also pretty surprised to hear that the SLO resigned. Given that everything Chief Carey just said, I'm a little disappointed that we don't have any data on how many calls were made last year, the frequency of the calls, and if those calls were minor infractions versus this year, what the calls were about. I wish that that was something that was presented. I mean, given that the person isn't in the position anymore, I guess that's not surprising, but I expected more from the presentation tonight on the why. And then it sounds like we can't train every officer on the police force to have a deep understanding of the school, which makes sense to me, but I do think that it's important to have one or two people have some grounded understanding of the school so that people are not showing up and disrupting the school day. And that seems like something that the police should be taking care of, and not, the onus should not be on the school to do that. It should be something the police department is doing and paying for. Also, given that everything Chief Carey brought up about the attendance meetings, I think that that's a golden opportunity for a social worker. I think that if we had a social worker instead of an SLO, we would not be worried about attrition, not be worried when an officer wants to go to another municipality for a pay raise. I think that would be a great opportunity to have someone in there who can both liaise with the police department in an effective way and be a part of the school, and then lend their skills to the school in other ways. Especially given how tight our budget is, I don't think the SLO as it stands should remain a position. I think that we should rethink that and take this as an opportunity to tighten our belts and get those kids more support with a social worker. Thank you.
Gretchen Kalecki, 920 Grand Avenue, Collingswood. I just would like to say that I support bringing back the SLO. Sounds like from Chief Carey's report, there was measurable differences from last year to this year. I understand that we don't know how many times they didn't call, because that would be very difficult information to glean, but it sounds like the times that were called dropped by a good percentage. I have a graduate of our school district, I have a senior right now, and I have someone who's about to be a freshman in the high school. It can be scary when you drive by at lunchtime and see things happening. I'm not talking about this year, in other years. It's been a wonderful change from last year to this year. I can credit, yes, the new principal, but I also think there has been some really positive things going on, and I hope that that initiative continues.
Hi, Lindsay Oster, 1005 McGill Avenue. I'm just referencing the proposed calendar, and I am very appreciative of Jewish high holidays being off, very appreciative of Rosh Hashanah, and just wanted to point out that it's not, in Jewish faith, it's not necessary to also have off on the day before Yom Kippur, which I saw is on the calendar. So just to consider another day that kids can be in school, as the holiday does not start until sundown that evening. So.
Thank you, everyone. We're moving on to Section 8, the Superintendent's Report. Dr. McDowell will present.
So good evening, everyone. Thank you for being in attendance on this chilly day. The weather keeps playing a harsh joke on us. One day it's 72, 73 degrees, and the next it is freezing. So thank you for joining us. As it relates to Section 8, 8.01, our enrollment for February of 2023 was 2283. February of 2024 is 2268 with the enrollment report attached. 8.02 and 03 are the school safety drill reports as well as the suspension. Those are also attached. And then just a few announcements and positive updates as it relates to our schools, to our students, and our staff. And so I want to start with a very high-level budget update. Earlier this month, we reached out to our school communities to share information regarding Collingswood receiving flat funding, in essence, for the last 3 years, and significant reductions in overall state aid to Oak Lynn, despite the state's announcement to significantly increase overall educational spending. In addition to the rising costs of educational services for students. We are collectively disappointed to receive this news and have reached out to the New Jersey Department of Education, as we are still unclear as to the reason for the state's decision or the state's interpretation of the funding formula, which is set to expire this year. We will continue to advocate for our school communities as we plan for the new year. We would like to publicly thank our board members in Collingswood and Oak Lynn for their partnership, advocacy, and public hearing testimonies. In addition, we'd like to thank District 6 State Senator James Beach, Assemblyman Louis Greenwald, Assemblywoman Pamela Lampett, and District 5 State Senator Nilsa Cruz Perez, Assemblyman William Spearman, and Assemblyman William Moen for listening to school districts that were affected and also advocating on our behalf at the state level. We were equally surprised and disappointed that these financial cuts came in the midst of the lurking fiscal cliff due to the expiration of COVID-era federal funding this September. Over the coming weeks and months, we will be exploring additional actions to appeal the continued decrease in overall funding, as well as the challenges associated with the state's flawed school funding formula. We're coordinating advocacy efforts with other surrounding districts that are similarly affected and our state legislators. However, we must accept that our current situation is difficult, and it will require us to make extremely tough financial decisions in the coming weeks. As we review and re-review and re-review our school and department requests, we will continue to emphasize student need and staff retention. So although we will be submitting a preliminary budget this evening to the Camden County Office of Education, it will take time until we have a firm grasp on what the actual impact will be. Over the next month, we will be working closely with school leaders, association leaders, and community partners to finalize a budget that honors the values of our community. We understand that this is not what we were all hoping for, but our school community has proven time and time again to be resilient, and we will get through this as we have all other items together. So in the interim, we will be sending out communication to both communities asking for your support and your advocacy in the form of writing letters to our local and state representatives to advocate on our behalf and on behalf of public education in New Jersey for an equitable school funding formula that prioritizes and values the needs of all students in New Jersey. We'd also like to acknowledge this week today begins the Neurodiversity Celebration Week. And so on behalf of the Special Services team in Collingswood and Oak Lynn's CPAG, which is the Special Education Parent Advocacy Group, we're pleased to share our plans. Those will also be sent out. This is a district-wide initiative that is an important step towards our goal of making our school communities more inclusive. So what are the goals of Neurodiversity Celebration Week? is to increase awareness around brain differences in schools and the community, share information about neurotypes such as autism, ADHD, and dyslexia in a strength-based and inclusive way, learn how we can support and accommodate students with differences within our communities, and then celebrate being a part of a world that values all kinds of minds. And so the team has worked to develop a guide that outlines daily themes, discussion questions, and classroom activities for teachers to complete with students each day this week. And we are excited about our classes that are going to be participating. And so, in addition, just to give another reminder that preschool registration is now open until April 1st. And so all Collingswood children ages 3 and 4 are eligible for full-day preschool without charge for the 24-25 school year. If your child is eligible, we encourage you to visit the registration page and complete the lottery application prior to the April 1st deadline. We'd also like to give an additional plug. This week starts Shrek the Musical, and so the Collingswood Theater Group is gearing up for their new performance. We have a huge cast of talented students and production staff, and the 2-hour show is not something that you want to miss. Please come out to support the show. Starting on March 21st through the 23rd. Tickets are still available at www.collingswoodtix.com. You heard earlier from Chief Carey regarding the SLO. And I would say that in addition to what was shared is that last year Collingswood Grants Department was able to receive a federal safety and security grant. And so in preparation for a really challenging budget year, we pulled funding for the SLO out of the general funds, and it will, should the position return, it will be aligned and it will come from grant funds from the federal government for that intended purpose. It will not affect the annual budget. Athletics continues to be a shining a spotlight in our school community, and so we encourage everyone to check out the spring sports schedule. Tennis, softball, baseball, lacrosse, track, and volleyball are currently active right now. We'd like to announce some of our, just a few of our standout student athletes. And so Tomas Money made the first team all-conference basketball team. He also played in the Al Carino All-South Jersey All-Star game this past weekend at Rutgers. Zoe Sullivan has been named the 2024 South Jersey Invitation Basketball Tournament Most Inspirational Player. This award is chosen at the end of each season by the board of the South Jersey Basketball Tournament Club. Zoe scored her first varsity points versus Delsey High School in the tournament. The gym was packed, and it was a moment that impacted everyone in attendance. And after the game, she was also awarded Player of the Game. Zoe is a great example of, to all of our student athletes, that hard work and a little grit can take you a long way. We're also proud to recognize football standout Shakur Carter for being recognized as the NJSIAA All-State All-Star. Shaq becomes the 5th Collingswood High School player in the last 40 years to be to represent the South in the Phil Simms North-South All-State All-Star game on June 9th of 2024. He currently holds the school record for the most receptions in a single game, the most career catches, the most yards gained, the most touchdown receptions, and by his own volition, he says that with the support of his family, his team, and his teachers, he's extremely proud to represent College Nation. And so we salute all of our student athletes, all of the coaches, all of the volunteers, all of the families that support our student athletes every single day. Students from Collingswood High School also participated in a 4-day-long Model United Nations Convention in Philadelphia. We were one of 16 schools from around the country to participate. The students engaged in conferences related to international issues and practiced skills such as public speaking, academic debate, and critical thinking. We'd like to publicly thank advisor Mr. Goldburn and all of the volunteers who supported our students over the long weekend. In addition, in honor of Neurodiversity Week, our Ignite program went to Delsey Regional. And so they spent the day with their pen pals. So Delsey and Collingswood students spent the day socializing, participating in engaging activities, including a scavenger hunt tour around the school. They met with the leadership team, and they even shared a meal together. Our Collingswood students did a phenomenal job of representing our school and our community. What a great way to spend time with new friends. Special thanks to Mrs. Williams and Ms. O'Brien for leading this important and inclusive effort. So the words performance, motivation, recognition, and pride are characteristic of the Collingswood High School Renaissance program. This program was established to recognize and honor students for positive academic and behavioral contributions on campus. The demands and desires of our students within this new millennium are changing as the world rapidly changes around them. They're in a constant journey to discover uplifting experiences, belong to something greater, build strong and unique identities, and ultimately find success. This is achieved by recognizing the efforts and achievements of the teachers and students and rewarding academic performance through incentives on campus. Renaissance schools often focus their programs on improving overall academic performance, improving attendance, increasing graduation rates, and creating a positive, safe school environment. We would like to congratulate the 194 students who earned the Renaissance distinction for the second marking period, and they were celebrated this month during class assemblies. We would also like to wish our Wellness Center a happy anniversary. And so the Wellness Center in Collingswood Public Schools has been now open for a full year. We originally started in the high school and expanded into middle school. We've also integrated social emotional learning, academics, and behavioral support. Since the grand opening, we have supported over 250 students and continue to grow. The Wellness Center team collaborates with the counseling department, the child study team, the middle school and high school administration, teachers, students, and families. And we are extremely thankful to have this resource as it allows for the whole child to be seen, heard, and supported. Happy anniversary, and that concludes my report.
Thank you, Dr. McDowell. Section 9 is the student reports, but I know at least one of those students is currently in tech rehearsal for Shrek. So I'm guessing that is why they are not here. Reminder again to buy your tickets. I think it's going to be a great show. There's 2 different casts, so you can go see it more than once even. Section 10, the Business Administrator Board Secretary Report. Ms. Coleman will present.
All right, this evening, 10.01 are your February monthly budget transfers. 10.02 are your financial statements, including your cash flow and cash report. 10.03 is the student activities cash report. We do not have a food service financial statement for the month. I just got it this morning, so it wasn't in time, so it'll be on for next month. 10.05 is the listing of the purchase orders that have been issued this month, and 10.06 is the listing of the warrants that will be paid tomorrow morning, pending approval this evening.
Thank you, Ms. Coleman. Moving on to Section 11, Buildings, Grounds, and Finance Committee. Mr. Craig will present.
The Finance, Buildings, and Grounds Committee reviews all financial statements, purchase orders, and warrants on a monthly basis. Committee also reviews and approves all contracts with outside service providers and oversees all maintenance and capital improvement projects district-wide. Seeking approval for the following items. Beth Ann, should we skip the food service?
Yeah, I've got it. It's noted.
Okay. So 11.2 to 11.9, the Board Secretary's report is presented. 11.10 is the submission of the preliminary budget for county approval, as was mentioned earlier. 11.11 is submission of next year's preschool budget to the New Jersey Department of Education. 11.12 is the acceptance of a RFP request with ESS to provide paraprofessional staffing for the following school year. 11.13 is continuing our agreement with Camden County Educational Services Commission. 11.14 is approving Garrison Architects to submit a proposed schedule of school facility projects as they are ongoing. 11.15 is the approval to go out and find a bond attorney. 11.16, also an attorney to help us with the contract for Parkview. 11.17, request for following list of RFPs to be put out. 11.18 is year 2 of the school-based mental health programs grant, accepting of those funds, $250,000. 11.19 is a submission of the Teacher Climate and Culture Innovation Grant. 11.20, another small grant application, this one to Sustainable Jersey Schools. 11.21 is the School Health Insurance Fund and approval of that. 1122 and 1123 are shared service agreements, Woodland and then with Collingswood Borough. 1124 is the acceptance of a generous donation from resident Kyle Chang of a couple ThinkPad laptops, and some iPads. So we thank Mr. Chang for that generous donation. 1125 to 1129 are use of facility requests, and we are seeking approval for items 11.2 to 11.29.
Thank you. Motion to approve said items.
So moved.
And a second. Questions or comments from board members?
I have a question about the submission of the budget. Is there any, I know you said we can't provide a lot of detail in terms of like what's to come in April, but what are we submitting now to them? And does that like, do they see any potential, or do we see any potential cuts to staff or our student-facing positions?
We are,
So I have made substantial cuts to the Collingswood budget to get it to balance in order to be submitted to the state. As far as reductions and where they're coming from, this is between now and April 30th. Dr. McDowell and I are going to be sitting with everybody to figure out how best to tackle that. So I literally just took 3 or 4 of the largest line items and just to get it to balance, to make sure that we were within our statutory requirements to submit a balanced budget within our tax levy that were required. But some of the hard decisions are going to be coming between now and April, which is why we're not like rolling out with all of the details, because it's very fluid at this moment. But the final budget presentation will be obviously at the end of April. But you'll have everything by then. I just did what I had to do over the weekend to get it done.
Yep, so all we're sending to the state is just saying that all of our numbers add up essentially.
Basically, all of our numbers add up, and this is our budget, and I'm not exceeding my taxing authority, basically. And between now and April, we'll figure it out. Okay.
And those conversations will happen internally within the district and within district administration and staff to make sure that they're the first people that hear that information. Would that be accurate?
Yes.
Any other questions or comments from board members? Roll call, please.
Mr. Chu,
Yes.
Mr. Craig,
yes.
Mrs. Maya,
Yes.
Mrs. Mikulski,
Yes.
Mrs. Savarino,
Yes.
Mrs. Seltzer,
Yes.
Mrs. Sheridan Celia,
Yes.
Mr. Sherman,
Yes.
Mr. Tavy,
Yes, with abstentions where necessary.
Mr. Dokes,
Yes.
Mrs. Caden.
Yes. Moving on to section 12, the curriculum committee, Mr. Chu will present.
The curriculum committee oversees and approves the district curriculum and assessment programs, as well as field trips, home instruction, co-curricular programs, and the school calendar. 12.02, 03, and 04 are field trips. I actually don't have my list today, so we'll not be listing those off. 05 is overnight field trip for high school indoor garden percussion competition. 06 is the proposed 2024-25 Collingswood school calendar, and that is linked in the agenda. 12.07 is Listen, Learn, Playco. That's another presentation for preschool students, this time to prove Mr. Boom Boom to play, I think, West African drums for preschool students. So I am seeking approval for items 12.02 through 12.07.
Thank you. Motion to approve said items? So moved. And a second? Questions or comments from board members?
I do have another question regarding the school calendar. I know last year I see that a lot of half-days have been removed, and we've talked about that, but I also want to follow up on the supplemental calendar. Is that something that we are going to expect to come out, or has that been something that's not going to be in existence anymore?
So yes, there will be a supplemental calendar, but the supplemental calendar will not have days off. The community, as well as the expectations of the board, is to lessen the confusion. And so we took all of the feedback that has come in over the last year. We synthesized that. This is the draft of the calendar, so the next level is that it will be color-coded. The supplemental calendar will be announcing testing dates only, not days off. and that will come after the state announces the testing dates.
So are there still going to be like secondary half-days and then elementary half-days?
No.
Okay.
And just to clarify, like basically on the supplemental calendar, there will not be any additional early dismissals. There are early dismissals on the calendar itself.
Correct.
But those are the ones that
Right.
will be there. Won't be an additional one with like.
Right, so all of the
10 or 12,
proposed
right.
early dismissals are listed here. And that was the feedback that families gave, lessened the confusion.
Thank you.
So I have a clarifying question about the Yom Kippur date. I thought we had drilled down and gotten that right, but now I'm confused and I don't have it in front of me. So do we? I mean, I guess we can always amend that if needed next month if we need to look into that. But I thought
Yes.
that we don't have a half day or a day off before the day. We just have the date of, correct? It's one date.
Right. So Yom Kippur starts Friday at sundown, is that, I believe, and then it's actually on Saturday, if I remember correctly. That's October
So that's what you're saying.
9th and 10th, I think.
Okay.
And so right now, I believe October 9th is a day off, which is, and Yom Kippur would start.
No, October 11th is the day off.
October 11th.
But, okay.
Yeah.
But
Oh,
it's
sorry.
not
Yeah, October 11th. Yeah.
necessary for celebrating the
Yes.
holiday.
So then, the
So we could potentially not have, okay.
the difference, but then with Rosh Hashanah, that starts on
Right.
a Wednesday
Yeah,
at
that one we went
sundown,
through, right.
and then ends on a Friday at, what was it, they say, I think twilight is what they say. So then,
Sundown, but-
what's on the calendar right now is that actually that Thursday, the full day,
Right,
the single full day would be the day that's off.
right, okay. So at this point, because I think discussions would need to be had with folks working in the district to talk more about October 11th, but perhaps that's something that we can look into, whether that's a day that we need to have off or a day that can be recovered. So thanks to the community member for bringing that to our attention, and we can look into that more. Any other questions or comments from board members?
As I mentioned, also with the calendar, one of the, I think, nice things about it is that because Christmas Eve is on the 24th, which is a Tuesday, through, I think, discussions, we felt that it was better to just have that Monday off.
Right.
And so it will be a little bit longer break, but I think it works a lot better for families, students, teachers, administrators, and so that's something just to keep a note of.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Mr. Chu?
Yes.
Mr. Craig?
Yes.
Mrs. Maya?
Yes.
Mrs. Mikulski?
Yes.
Mrs. Severino?
Yes.
Mrs. Seltzer?
Yes.
Mrs. Sheridan Celia?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
Mr. Tavy?
Yes, with abstentions where required.
Mr. Dilkus?
Yes.
Mrs. Kaden?
Yes. Section 13 is the Personnel Committee. Ms. Sheridan Celia will present.
The Personnel Committee reviews all recommendations for teaching and staff employment, considers co-curricular employment, and considers all professional development opportunities for staff members. This evening, I'm seeking approval of items 13.02 through 13.25. Items 13.02 through 13.04 are resignations. There is a rescinded contract at 13.05, a transfer at 13.06. There are leave requests from 13.07 through 13.11. At 13.12 is the appointment of a math teacher. 13.13 through 13.15 are long-term substitute appointments. 13.16, high school PLC leader appointment. 13.17 is after-school clubs, a revised pay rate. 13.18, elementary school club at Tatum, which is the Spring Art Club. 13.19 is the approval of the contract for Beth Ann Coleman, Assistant Superintendent for Business and Operations, and the Board Secretary. At 13.20 is the contract renewal of Dr. Frederick McDowell, Superintendent of Schools. 13.21 is a 2-month contract for Meredith Howell-Turner, who is our new Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Instruction. Her full 12-year contract is up for approval. 12-month, what did I say?
12
12-year,
years.
no. Whoops, sorry about that. All right, 12-month approval at 13.22. And 13.23 is the granting of a tuition for a student, tuition-free for a student. 13.24, appointments of 4 substitutes and tutors. 13.25 is the travel expense form. So again, as I said before, I'm seeking approval for items 13.02 through 13.25 this evening.
Motion to approve said items.
So moved.
And a second? Questions or comments from board members? Roll call, please.
Mr. Chu,
Yes.
Mr. Craig,
Yes.
Mrs. Maya,
Yes, with the exception of 13.20, where I vote no.
Mrs. Mikulski,
Yes, except for 13.20 where I vote no.
Mrs. Savarino,
Yes.
Mrs. Seltzer,
Yes.
Mrs. Sharon Celia,
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman,
Yes.
Mr. Tavy,
Yes, with exceptions where required.
Mr. Dilkus,
Yes, except where required to abstain.
Mrs. Caden.
Yes. Moving on to section 14, the Culture, Climate, and Policy Committee. Ms. Seltzer will present.
The Policy, Culture, and Climate Committee reviews all updates and changes to district policies and regulations. There are 5 policies that were up for a first read. I want to clarify, just based on some of the comments from earlier, that these are policy updates that come from by recommendation of a policy service that many districts, not just here, but across the area use. And so these are not recommended changes per Collingswood alone. They are recommended by the service. And a lot of the changes are for updating language and updating standards, so shifts in language around equity, gender, students designated multilingual learners. Everything okay? Okay. And shifting away from Common Core references toward New Jersey state learning standards. So, seeking approval for items 1402.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Questions or comments from? Questions or comments from board members? All right. Is everything okay? How about that?
Now I was trying to make note of the policy that
Okay.
was mentioned, like,
Gotcha.
that had the word in it, so I could go back and look
Just
at
checking.
it. I knew Roger would have it. I was like, I didn't have it. That's what it was, sorry.
Okay.
You know, so I know that a lot of these policies are both given to us via recommendation from the school or policy service, but then a number of them are also by statute, basically, that we have to,
Yes.
by regulations.
Yeah.
Do we know which ones here are required by statute or regulation? It's okay if we don't have. Are they?
Oh, I believe, what was the question?
Oh, so somebody had to hang up their microphone. I can find out these all, yeah, they were all mandated requirements that came from, so there's either a change in statute, a change like in a term, so if it's a strikeout, it's mandated. So, yeah, so.
Awesome, thank you.
I think also just important to note that the equity in school and classroom practices policy is not the same thing as the district's equity plan, which is more robust and more specific to the district. This is just about statute.
Same with the comprehensive equity plan as well, actually. Ours, that's a mandated one by the state. What would be considered like the public-facing or internal document is definitely more robust than that one. Any other questions or comments from board members? Roll call, please.
I apologize about that. Mr. Chu?
Yes.
Mr. Craig?
Yes.
Mrs. Maya?
Yes.
Mrs. Mikulski?
Yes.
Mrs. Savarino?
Yes.
Mrs. Seltzer?
Yes.
Mrs. Sharon Celia?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
Mr. Tavy?
Yes, with abstentions where required.
Mr. Dilkis?
Yes.
Mrs. Caden?
Yes. Section 15 miscellaneous, we have 15.01 is the previous month's HIB report, and that's the HIB report for February 2024, and then 15.02 are the approval of 2 job descriptions, so not jobs, just job descriptions for the future. One is a level 3 database administrator, and the other is a level 3 network administrator. So we are looking for approval of items 15.01 and 15.02. Motion to approve said items.
So moved.
And a second. Questions or comments from board members?
Yes, so in looking ahead at these potential job descriptions, is this, us approving this tonight, is that indicating that we're going to be looking for people to fill these positions?
We actually have people filling them right now.
Yeah?
So last year, remember, I asked for additional help with the tech team and I was denied. So in order to get the services to the schools that we need and keep up with the tech ticket, we have a database, I don't know what her job, I don't know what they call her now. She's a guru. She's a coordinator in the board office. She does NJ Smart and Genesis. She just finished her degree. So we took Patrick's job description and her job description, and we kind of split them down the middle 50-50, and she's going to be taking a lot of the management and stuff and reporting requirements that Patrick does with me off of his plate to free him up. So we basically just, somebody already have in the district, she's just picking up additional responsibilities to help me with the tech team.
So these 2 roles are just clarifying what their job descriptions are?
Yes, they met
Gotcha.
along with me, and we looked at job descriptions and we split them 50-50.
Okay.
Okay?
Any other questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Mr. Chu?
Yes.
Mr. Craig?
Yes.
Mrs. Maya?
Yes, except for 1502, I'm going to abstain.
Mrs. Mikulski?
Yes, except 1502 where I abstain.
Mrs. Savarino?
Yes.
Mrs. Seltzer?
Yes.
Mrs. Sheridan Celia?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
Mr. Tavy?
Yes.
Mr. Dilkis?
Yes.
And Mrs. Cade?
Yes. We have come to our second opportunity for public participation. This is for more general comments. I think everyone that was here pretty much heard what I usually say, but just reminded that attempts to resolve all concerns and complaints should first go through appropriate staff members and administrators, that we're actively listening and taking notes, and to everyone's welcome to speak and expected to do so with the utmost sensitivity for everyone in attendance. It's a strict 3-minute time limit. Ms. Coleman will be keeping time. Please come to the mic, state your name and address for the record.
Gretchen Kalecki, 920 Grant Avenue, Collingswood. Just a couple things. Hopefully I'll go as fast as I can. Just wondering what is being done to court new teachers and for the morale of teachers. Unfortunately, I've spoken to a lot of people out in the other districts who are looking at positions that are open here and have stepped away because we're known as a hot mess. And I know we're not a hot mess, but I'd like to know how we're getting the message that we're not a hot mess out there, because we have fabulous programs, we have wonderful children, our staff is phenomenal, but we're still out there as a hot mess. So we need to change that so other people want to come here. Also, I think our communications needs to step up for our high school. There are parents out there, again, I'm on my 3rd coming into the high school, so I know about these great things, other people don't. The engineering program, the TV program, digital music, people don't even know we have a swim team. I do, but I think it really needs to get out there. Again, we have fabulous teachers, we have fabulous children. Please keep it that way as much as you can, but also we need to get new people in and we need to change the view. Also, staff contact information is gone from the website. We've been told that it was a best practice. However, there's no listing of staff anywhere on the website. Seems very odd that you can't even find administrators for your buildings. Nothing. You can search staff directory, it's not there. We were told that it was because of phishing or scam emails being sent, but can't this be behind the password of Genesis? We were also told, well, if you know the first initial and the last name spelling, there you go. What if I don't know the first initial? What if I don't know how exactly to spell the last name? These are things that I think could be on Genesis very easily. We also asked for a hard copy. That was a no. So these things I think are really important for your transparency and for people to reach out. We want to be able to tell the teachers, hey, good job. We can't do that. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for that feedback. We will look into some of those concerns. And at this time, we are at section 17, motion to adjourn the meeting. And a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night. Remember to come back next Tuesday, the 26th.